Welcome, everyone. I'm excited to kick off our session today with a focus on writing a personal narrative essay. Our goal is to share your story and unlock the power of your personal experience. Throughout this presentation, we'll explore how to craft compelling personal narratives that truly resonate. So let's get started. Just click. Let's begin when you're ready. So, what exactly is a personal narrative? Well, it's essentially a story about your own life, your unique experiences that stand out to you. Think of it as sharing your story, your perspective. When I say it's about you, I mean it's a story about a real moment or event that you've actually experienced. It's not a whole autobiography, but rather a focused glimpse into one specific part of your life. Now, it's important that the story is told from your point of view. That's what we call the first-person perspective, using words like I, me, and my. This way, your audience gets to see things through your eyes, making the story more personal and engaging. And here's the key. Your story should include a lesson or a reflection. It's not just about what happened, but also about what you learned from that experience or why it was meaningful. That why is really important because it gives your story depth and purpose. So, as you think about your own memory, ask yourself, what's the most memorable moment from your life that you could write about? Keep that in mind because we'll be using this idea later on. This is the essence of a personal narrative, focused, personal, and meaningful. Let's talk about the 3 essentials for a compelling personal narrative. First, we have the real element. This is about including real people and actual events. Remember, it's nonfiction, what actually happened. Sharing real experiences helps your story feel authentic and relatable. Next is felt. This is where you express feelings and reflections. Show your emotional connection to the event. How did it make you feel? What did it mean to you? This emotional layer makes your story more engaging and meaningful. Finally, learned. This is about the lesson or meaning you took away from the experience. What did it teach you? What insights did you gain? The key takeaway here is that every great personal narrative combines these 3 elements: real, felt, and learned. Your story isn't just about what happened. It's about how it made you feel and what you learned from it. When you weave these together, your story becomes powerful and memorable. Let's talk about the cast and the stage, who and where. First, we have the characters. These are the real people involved in your story: family, friends, teachers, or anyone who played an important role. When describing them, think about what they looked like, how they spoke, and what made them unique or memorable. This helps your audience connect more deeply with your narrative. Next is the setting. This is the time and place where your story took place. Consider details like the time of day, the season, the location, and the overall atmosphere. To really bring it to life, use sensory details, things you saw, heard, felt, tasted, or smelled. For example, describing the warm sunlight, the scent of fresh grass, or the distant sounds of laughter can make your scene vivid. Now, for practice, try describing the setting of your favorite memory. Use at least 3 sensory details. Maybe it's the feel of the cool breeze, the bright colors around you, or the sounds of nature. Incorporating these details helps your audience visualize and feel part of your story. Finally, remember the 5 senses: what you see, hear, feel, taste, and smell. These elements are key to immersing your audience and making your story memorable. So, when you're sharing your story, think about how to engage all of these senses to paint a rich, vivid picture. Let's talk about the action and the challenge. So, what actually happened in the story? Well, it all starts with the plot, which is basically the sequence of events told in the order they occurred. First, there's the beginning. How did it all start? Then there's the middle, where things happen next and the story develops. And finally, there's the end, where we see how everything wraps up. But what's really interesting is the conflict. That's the problem or challenge you faced along the way. And remember, without conflict, there's no story to tell. It's what makes your story engaging and meaningful. As we go through the plot, I want you to think about the transitions. First, next, finally. These words help guide us through the story's flow. And a quick practice question for you: what are the 3 main parts of a story's plot? Think about how your story unfolds from start to finish. Understanding these parts helps us see how stories develop and keeps our audience engaged from beginning to end. So let's talk about the takeaway from this story. First, the resolution. How did the conflict end? What was the outcome of everything that happened? It's important to understand how things wrapped up and what was learned from the experience. But even more crucial is the reflection and lesson learned. This is really the heart of the story, because it shows how the experience changed us or shifted our perspective. For example, I realized that family time creates memories that last forever. Now you might wonder, why is the lesson learned more important than just knowing how the story resolved? Well, think about what makes a story meaningful. It's not just about what happened, but what we take away from it. The insight, the growth, the change in how we see things. That's what truly makes a story impactful and memorable. Let's start with the structure of your introduction, the hook and the background. First, the hook is all about grabbing your reader's attention immediately. You want something that makes them curious or eager to find out more. You might use a surprising question like, "Have you ever lost something precious?" Or go for a bold statement such as, "That day changed everything." Sometimes, a sensory detail works well, like, "The smell of smoke filled the air." The idea is to make your audience feel engaged right from the beginning. Next, we move to the background, which sets the scene. Briefly, you want to answer the basic questions. Who was involved? Maybe your family, a close friend, or a teacher. When did it happen? Like last summer on a Tuesday morning during lunch. And where were you? For example, it was a warm summer morning when my family decided to spend the day at the beach. Finally, let your audience know what's coming next. This transition prepares them for the main part of your presentation, moving from the hook and background into the core message. Remember, the goal here is to create a compelling opening that smoothly leads into the main ideas you'll share. Now, let's focus on completing your introduction by emphasizing the main idea. This part is crucial because it tells your audience what your story is about and gives them a hint of the lesson they'll learn. Think of it as setting expectations for what's to come. For example, you might say, "That day taught me the true meaning of family and gratitude." Or perhaps, "I didn't realize how important that moment would be until years later." Here's a pro tip. Your introduction should make your audience feel like they're about to discover something meaningful. You want to pique their curiosity without giving away the entire story. The main idea should subtly hint at the lesson, sparking their interest to keep listening. And for your practice challenge, try writing a hook for a story about a lost pet. Make it emotional, surprising, or intriguing, something that immediately draws your audience in. Remember, the goal is to make them eager to hear more, so craft your hook carefully. Now let's look at the core structure of your story, which we call the core events. Think of this as the heartbeat of your narrative. Each body paragraph should focus on a single main event, arranged in chronological order. For example, if you're telling a story about a family beach day, one paragraph might describe arriving at the beach, another about playing volleyball, and a final one about watching the sunset. The key here is to keep each paragraph centered on one main event to maintain clarity and flow. Also, don't forget to bring your characters and events to life with dialogue. Including conversations makes your story feel real and engaging. Imagine a character exclaiming, "Let's build the biggest sandcastle ever," with excitement. That kind of detail makes the scene more vivid. Looking ahead, in part 2, we'll add sensory details, transitions, and show rather than tell. But for now, focus on identifying and clearly presenting each key event in your story's sequence. This foundation will make your entire narrative much more compelling and easy to follow. Now, let's dive into mastering body paragraphs with the golden rule. Show, don't tell. This is essential for engaging your reader and making your writing vivid. Instead of simply stating facts or emotions, use detailed descriptions that allow your audience to experience the scene themselves. For example, instead of telling, "I was scared," you can show it by saying, "My hands were shaking and my heart hammered against my ribs." This paints a picture of fear through physical cues. Similarly, instead of saying, "The food was delicious," show the sensation with, "The warm chocolate melted on my tongue and the sweetness made me smile." It's all about sensory details. Another example is, "The room was messy." Instead of just stating that, describe it. Clothes lay scattered across the floor, and books were stacked haphazardly on every surface. These details create a vivid image. Now it's your turn to practice. I challenge you to rewrite 4 prompts. He was angry. She was excited. The day was beautiful, and I was tired. Use sensory details and action verbs to show these emotions and descriptions. This is how you truly bring your writing to life. Remember, the key tip here is to use sensory details and action verbs. This technique helps your reader experience the story through their senses, making your writing more immersive and compelling. So, in wrapping up, let's briefly revisit the main event we discussed today. Remember, we aren't going into every detail again, but just highlighting the core of what happened. This quick recap helps reinforce the key points in your mind. Next, I want to share my personal reflection. This experience really made me feel insert feeling, and it's meaningful to me because explain why it matters. It's important because it showed me share insight or lesson, which I believe is something we can all learn from. Finally, the most crucial part, what's the final lesson here? What's the universal truth we can take away? For me, it's that state the lesson clearly, because understanding this can truly impact how we approach similar situations in the future. And to leave you with a lasting impression, I want to end with a powerful statement. Conclude with a thought-provoking or inspiring sentence. Remember, your final words can have a lasting impact, so make sure they're meaningful. Now let's look at some advanced tips for writing lively and realistic dialogue. We'll focus on rules 1 and 2. First, rule 1, use quotation marks. Always place quotation marks around the exact words a character speaks. For example, you might write, "Let's build a sandcastle," my sister shouted. This helps your readers clearly see what each character is saying. Next, rule 2, use a new line for each speaker. Every time a different person speaks, start a new line. This makes the dialogue much easier to follow. For instance, you could write, "Are you ready?" I asked. Then, on a new line, "Yes, let's go," she replied. These rules make your conversations more lively and natural. Remember, clear dialogue keeps your story engaging and helps your readers connect with your characters. Up next, we'll cover Rule 3, which involves dialogue tags and a fun practice challenge to improve your skills. Now let's look at an advanced tip for making your dialogue more vivid and engaging, using dialogue tags. These are the words like said, asked, whispered, shouted, or laughed that show us how a character is speaking. They're crucial because they add emotion and personality to your dialogue, helping the reader understand the tone and feeling behind the words. For example, saying, "I'm scared," she whispered, immediately conveys her fear more effectively than just the words alone. Or, "Don't worry," he said confidently, which shows his reassurance. Using different tags like shouted or complained can also illustrate the dynamics between characters. This slide also emphasizes the importance of choosing the right dialogue tags to match the mood, because the tag is not just a filler, but a key to bringing your characters' voices to life. And now, for an interactive challenge. I want you to write a short 2-line dialogue between 2 characters arguing about a movie. Remember to include quotation marks, start a new line for each speaker, and use dialogue tags that show their emotions. Maybe one shouts, the other complains. This practice will help you master how to make your characters' conversations more believable and expressive. All right, now it's time to test what you've learned. Let's go through some questions to see how well you understand personal narrative writing. First, question 1. A personal narrative is a story about. Is it made-up events and fictional characters, someone else's life and experiences, or your own real life and experiences? Think about what makes a personal narrative unique. Next, question 2. What do we call the problem that a character faces in a story? That's right, it's the conflict, and it's a crucial part of any story because it drives the plot forward. Moving on to question 3. Should you use third-person perspective, like he, she, they, in a personal narrative? The answer is false. Personal narratives are written in first person because you're sharing your own experiences. Question 4 asks, which of these is not a key writing tip for personal narratives? Is it using sensory details like seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, and smelling? or using the first-person perspective, or using complicated formal language? The correct answer is using complicated formal language. You want your writing to sound natural and personal, not stiff. Finally, question 5. What is the purpose of the hook in your introduction? That's right, it's to grab the reader's attention right away and make them want to read more. Great job practicing. You're well on your way to becoming a personal narrative expert. Now that we've reached the final slide, it's time for your personal narrative checklist. First, have you written from the first-person perspective? That means using I, me, and my throughout your story to make it personal and authentic. Next, double-check if you've included all the story elements, characters, setting, plot, conflict, and resolution, because these are essential to crafting a complete story. Then, think about sensory details. Did you use descriptions that show what you saw, heard, felt, tasted, and smelled? This helps bring your story to life and makes it more engaging for your readers. Also, ensure your story is told in chronological order, with clear transitions so your audience can follow along easily. Finally, did you clearly state the lesson or meaning you learned from this experience in your conclusion? That's what gives your story purpose and leaves a lasting impression. You're all set now. Remember, your story matters. Your experiences are unique and valuable, so go ahead, write that amazing personal narrative with confidence. Let your voice shine through every word and enjoy sharing your story.